And welcome back to Behind the Veil, a show that provides insight into the world of wedding and events. I'm your host, Keith Willard. Welcome back to the show. Today, we are welcoming back Tom Chelednik, who is the North American Associate Director of Vendor Affairs for The Knot. And we're going to talk about this big wedding study that they just put out that had data from almost 17,000 couples about all the things that they do for planning. But before we bring him on, let me bring on my co-host, Marcy Gutenberg, with an affair to remember by Marcy. Hi, Marcy.
Hi, Keith. Hi, everybody. I'm so excited that we're back today.
I know
it's just crazy. Like time just is flying this year.
It really is.
And we're already almost in May.
Well, and we're going to get back to our regular shows. All of us had to get through season, because season's been a little crazy this year, but we're going to go back to our regular shows. And before I even forget, like and subscribe, because Marcy reminded me before we went on that I don't ever say like and subscribe. So like and subscribe. But our guest today, Tom Chelednik, last time he was on, we almost had 38,000. We had over 38,000 people watch the show about on YouTube on the last one, not even including the podcast stuff. So I can't even imagine, where our numbers end up. So, the great thing is that the information that he has and provides is stuff that all vendors can use to help promote their own business.
Mm-hmm.
And I really, and this study is crazy. We're not going to be able to get to everything.
It is filled with so much stuff. Tom is first of all, we're thrilled he is back today. So let's bring him on.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, Tom, welcome to the show.
Hi, Tom.
Hey, hi, guys. Thank you for having me back.
Oh, my goodness. Well, the last show got such a response. And
that's because of you all.
No. This has everything to do with the subject matter. Unbelievable. And this new wedding study that you guys just produced is crazy. The amount of data that is in this thing. Almost 17,000 couples.
Yeah. And we've been doing this for 16 years. Isn't that crazy? Like 16 years, almost for as long as I've been at the Knot. 16 years.
I know, but the thing is I feel like you guys have gotten better at collecting the data over time and started asking more and more questions that are relevant to the vendor experience.
Correct. Right. So in this particular study, we asked 50 questions and all different types of questions from couples, like I said, 17,000 from 2024 newlyweds to couples getting married in 2025. Wow. And those questions they're just not checking a box, right? They're giving paragraphs about that particular question. And then it's our job to take all that information, slice and dice it, and get it out there into the wedding professional community so you guys can make educated decisions about your business, of like what the trends are, what they're thinking, this new generation, so you can connect with these couples. So we do it on a national level, and then we also do it on a local market level too.
Well, and what I think is really important right now is that all of us are really scared about the world of our economy in general and how that is affecting the wedding world. And one of my surprise takeaways when I was looking through the data is the fact that things are kind of holding steady with what people are spending, who they're choosing, what they're planning. All of those things seem to be running a fairly straightforward track. Really, were there any other surprises that kind of jumped out at you?
Well, let's talk about, since you brought up the economic side of it, the buying patterns. Last year's Real Wedding Study, the economy reared its ugly head for the first time. This year, the economy reared its head again. Economic pressures absolutely continue to shape wedding planning. Couples really remain deeply committed to this celebration. Surprisingly, nearly 8 out of 10 of the saying their weddings is well worth that financial investment, and approximately half of those couples relying on the vendor guidance to stay within budget and to guide them. Last year we had 2 million weddings. This year we're still going to be at about 2 million weddings taking place. So economically, still plenty of weddings, still plenty of money, people spending money on their weddings. But they want to work with vendors out there that are helping them achieve their particular dreams, whatever that is. Maybe people want to spend more money on flowers than photography or whatever that may be, but they're relying on vendors more than ever before to create this dream.
Was there something that was different than you predicted? Because obviously because you guys do this often every year, obviously, I would assume that there were some preliminary predictions in your own brain about, what you thought you were hearing or seeing that were maybe different than what the study actually said.
I mean, not a ton, right? We figured the economy was still playing its role, but we have this generational shift that's happening now, right? Last year, weddings, there were about 32% of Gen Z were getting married. This year, it's about 50. Gen Z, I know we're going to talk about that a little later, but Gen Z is really, changing the way they're planning and the way they want to get married. The need for celebration has never been more essential. What we got out of this study this year, 84% of couples say they're looking forward to their wedding day more than anything else this year, given the macroeconomics and the socio-political landscape. So people are still getting married. People are still looking forward to it. More than 3/4 or 77% believe weddings remain as important as ever. And 96% of couples say they're grateful for the ability to celebrate in person with their friends and family. So all good signs, we're living in the world in which we live in, which is very volatile, right? But weddings are still happening. And
so life goes on.
Yeah.
It's what's really happening. I mean, people are saying, we still want to live our lives.
Well, and you know what they used to say is that, if you're going to be in the event industry, it's births, deaths, weddings, bar mitzvahs, all of those things are kind of life events that people continuously will always celebrate in one way or another, or mourn. Sorry, that was weird. But so question for you. One of the things that I actually worry about and that you see all the time is AI wedding planners, AI these wedding planning checklists and people using alternative options to an actual wedding planner. Are you seeing that AI has become bigger in the industry, or is that just kind of us thinking that?
So I'll talk about the stats, which the stats were different. That it came back differently than what I thought. We asked couples how much they're using AI in planning their weddings. And I was surprised, and many of us were surprised, but the answer was 90% of couples surveyed said they're not using it. And out of the 10% that utilize AI, they're using it for vow writing, speeches, thank yous, things like that.
But not for planning.
Not for planning. Now, of course, it makes sense AI will continue to be a very important planning tool, right? I believe, if I was a betting man, which I'm not because I'm too cheap to bet,
right?
But if I was a betting man, that number is going to continue to grow.
But I mean, it's surprising to me because you hear nothing but AI now on everything, and I just assumed that couples were kind of rolling with the trend. I mean, I use ChatGPT for almost everything I do at this point, but it's nice to know that couples are still relying on vendors to make those decisions and to help them plan.
So it's really also using the AI. I'm sorry, go ahead.
You also have to think that this study was given from the beginning of 2024 all the way through 2024. So in January 2024, I don't know if I was using chat as much as I'm using it now, right? So I believe, AI will continue to play a bigger place in planning. Lord knows here at the Knot, we're currently using AI. We're energized by all the developments in AI and technology, so what we're actually doing. We've implemented, we take all your 5-star reviews on your Knot Wedding Wear storefronts, and we use AI and do a summary of those. We've now created this really cool AI-based smart photo selector that is enabling for all our paid vendors to use AI, and the AI says, hey, what photos are most likely to get visited? What photos are most likely to get clicked? And this is the photo that you should use in your main image. So
really, I didn't even know that.
That's very cool. I remember the days when I got married, and I was using the Knot as a budget. How to work your budget. How to, you take your overall budget, and then you kind of figure out what areas you want to. But this is amazing that they can. I think AI has kind of gone in the way of more personalization, so that you can get your own feel and figure that out, and then bring it to your vendors and your planner so that they can hone it that much further.
Yeah.
Is that my thought?
I 100%. I agree. For couples on our sites, they're able to go in and they have this AI powered style quiz on the Knot. It allows the users to select photos that they love the most, the feel of their wedding, which then provides them recommendations of styles and vendors that have that same feel and, of their wedding. So couples could create these inspirational boards sharing with their vendors in their wedding circle using the AI tools that are currently there, and much more to come.
So less of people coming in and saying, I have no idea what I want. They'll have a little bit of an idea.
Right.
Well,
right.
I mean, before, it used to be, couples have a hard time visualizing everything that they're doing. That's part of what we do, is help them figure out, what their vision is. And a lot of times it was based on buzzwords. What were the buzzwords this year when it came to how people described their wedding? Because I know it was like romantic, or I want I want my wedding to be romantic. I want my wedding to be fun. I want my,
So
what is this year's buzzword?
The descriptors, right? How are couples describing their wedding? This latest Real Wedding study, we're back to the word fun, which fun for years and years and years and years and years, I want my wedding to be fun. Last year, the main descriptor was romantic. This year, it switched back to fun, but romantic is a very close second. So why is that important? Is because you want to show photos, you want to show videos, you want to talk about blogs, you want to show within your lead replies, fun and romantic weddings.
Right.
So very, very important. Aesthetically, in 2025 too, the trends are shifting towards more of an elegant refinement with things like old money, quiet luxury. They're expected to dominate alongside with styles like romantic and elegant too. So again, important information.
So a little traditional, a little, a little bit, a little more traditional.
Correct. What's old is sort of new again too, especially in Gen Z, where Gen Z, they're back to doing more bouquet tosses. Gen Z is back to doing having more cultural, religious things within their wedding more than millennials.
You mentioned something that like just a second ago that kind of ticked in my brain. Something you said, generational shift. What is that?
So those of us been around a long time, like me anyway, and no matter what business you're in, every time there's a generational shift, a business has to change, right? Like a business has to change to attract this new generation. So last year, 32% of weddings were Gen Z. We believe this year, 50% of weddings are Gen Z. And what's it going to be next year? Obviously, it's going to be more.
Right.
When you have a generational shift, no matter what it is, from X to millennials to Gen Z, if you would freeze your business today, all the products, services, pricing, website, and you transport yourself 2 years in advance and look back at your business, and you're still successful 2 years from now, and you're still doing weddings and being profitable, your business had major change. Products, pricing, packages, marketing, how you're responding to leads, where you're responding to leads, your website look. It's a shift that, quite frankly, should have been taking place with wedding pros last year, a little more this year, a little more next year, and then we're shifted to this generation.
So what are the differences between the previous generation and our current, the new generation?
Sure. Gen Z is anywhere between 18 and 27. Mm-hmm. Gen Z wants this more modern tradition keepers, right? They likely due to their younger age also, and the parents have a greater influence in their decision-making process. Gen Z embraces classic wedding traditions at higher rates than millennials, including like cake cutting, right? Gen Z cake cutting. 77% of Gen Z want cake cutting compared to versus 67. Bouquet tosses, 38 Gen Z compared to 23% millennials.
Bouquet tosses? What? I mean,
I thought they stopped.
Next you're going to tell me garters are back. Like what?
Bouquet toss. I was looking for the garter thing. I'm married 34 years. And we certainly did that old garter thing for sure.
Oh, God.
Changing last names upon marriage, 85% Gen Z versus 73% millennials. Millennials, on the other hand, they extend their celebrations more than Gen Z. Millennials are more likely than Gen Z to host a pre- and post-wedding events, such as welcome gatherings. 30% of millennials are doing that compared to 15%. After parties. Millennials are doing more after parties, 32 to 22%. I mean, I can go on and on with those numbers. There's a definite difference. But for both generations, we're also seeing couples providing guests with desserts over than the wedding cake being just served. So 66% on average have a dessert, bar table like cookies and cupcakes, but we can go on with numbers over and over again, but there's a definite shift, and wedding pros out there already see that. They already know that. So hopefully I'm sharing information here. We're sharing information on this podcast. It's just confirming some of the things that's important. But to connect to this generation, should you be talking about bouquet toss? Probably.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, because some of the traditional pieces. Well, and I will say that, when it comes to the cake cutting, I mean, I have had an uptick in having that photo op of the cake cutting, but not having enough cake to serve everybody. They want the dessert table, but then they want the little cake that they can cut. So they get the traditional photos, but that only serves like 30, 40 people. And then they add that to the bigger dessert table. So people have a choice of desserts that they can then choose from.
Right.
I mean, I find that really fascinating that they want the photos, but not really the whole cake cutting experience.
What I also find fascinating too, as far as numbers with this generation, right? Like wedding planning, use of wedding planning is way up. Our wedding pro numbers are still strong. But when you think through this now, we're now at a point where daughters of mothers the mothers plan their wedding on their knot. The daughters are now starting to plan their weddings on the knot. Look, I just got the chills, right? I just got the chills, right? I guess because I'm, I think it's just so.
No, explain that a little bit. You mean, are you saying that the people that got married, whose mothers planned their wedding, they are now planning their daughter's wedding? Or
the daughters are using the knot to plan their wedding, just like the mothers planned their own wedding.
Well, you must feel great about that, because that means that the knot is staying relevant. I'm just saying.
We consistently are 22 million unique page views, unique views a month, 4,000 daily average downloads on our app a day. I mean, the numbers continue to be strong, which is
so. What about like sizes of weddings? I mean, because it wasn't that long ago that we were looking at weddings that were 250, 300, 400 people, and then there was COVID, and then after COVID, everything shrank like dramatically. Like everybody was like, "No, I don't really care about my
25."
My uncle third removed that's an alcoholic, they're like, nope, I don't really care about bringing it. I want my close friends and family, the people that I actually talk to. But I've seen kind of an uptick in size. Are you seeing that in the data?
Sure, but there hasn't been a significant change in size. Guest count year over year from 2023 was about 115. 2024 on a national numbers at 116 within all the generations. There's a difference, right? Gen Z is inviting about 131 people to their weddings, while for millennials and Gen Xers, we're still seeing about 111 for 113 for millennials, about 88 for Gen X. Why is this important?
Growing.
Okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Keith.
So it's growing a little bit.
It's growing. Yeah, it's growing. It's grown a little bit. But the light at the end of the tunnel for those wedding pros out there that are caterers, florists, bar service, anything that's getting price per head, cake or desserts, the light at the end of the tunnel, Gen Z is inviting more guests at 131. So hopefully that trend continues to grow. But the reality of it, we're still not back to 2019 numbers on a national average. We were coincidentally at 131 across the board in 2019.
So things are coming back, or normalizing a little bit. Mm-hmm. What about colors? Because for a while there, there's always what is that, the color of the year, Marcy, that the
Pantone color of the year?
The Pantone color of the year that they come out, and it's like fuchsia or mustard or gray, I think was last year. And I'm always like, do people really pay attention to those colors? Were there colors that people gravitated to through the study or the data?
Yeah, absolutely. Greens, light or dark greens, are up 9% versus 2022, with 60% of weddings incorporating these colors.
Really?
The other color are blues, light or dark. They're up about 2% since 2022, but 50% of weddings are incorporating these colors. So why is that important? Again, photos, videos.
I was about to say, right? Do you want to put those kind of photos on your site or incorporate them into your proposal somehow? Because more and more people are focused on the blues and the greens, and so like enjoys like,
Right. Exactly. There are some regional differences with colors across the country, but overall, we're seeing the studies show greens and blues.
So I'm gonna ask two big scary questions, or big scary things.
Oh no!
I know. First, do you really believe that vendors should publish their pricing?
Yes. Yes.
This has been a constant conversation among vendors about whether or not to publish their pricing, and then do other people then copy their pricing, and then where do they find their pricing? Where do they fall? Where should they price themselves? And so you're saying absolutely you should have your price point out there.
Right. I think it's just how do we shop for products and services? What's the most important thing that we're looking for, right? We're looking for availability, we're looking for price, and we're looking for reviews, right?
Right.
So couples, when planning their weddings, are looking at the same thing. The interesting statistics, if this doesn't make you put some sort of pricing on your website, I don't know what will. 77% of couples consider pricing to be the most important factor when deciding which vendors to contact. So how you show it varies, right? Like, you probably have 15 different packages or 3 different packages, or it's difficult to, Marcy, the same situation. How you show it, it's difficult for some people. But even if you put a price range, my prices range, I'm making this up, $2,000 to $10,000. Couples usually spend $5,000. That couples usually spend $5,000 is probably it's who your ideal client is. It's what package they're buying the most. So, at the Knot, we just launched something called the Wedding Pro Playbook, and pricing. We were saying you have to put pricing. You're going to get more leads if you have pricing. You're going to get more of the right leads if you have pricing.
Right. So I have it on mine.
Having this conversation, I know why. Trust me, I talk to a lot of people in a year, but
I just think, it's one of those battles that goes back and forth that like people are like, well, do couples really know what to spend on certain vendors? Like, because some people, and this just happened recently. I had a couple that really thought that their floral budget was going to be at a certain amount, and it actually was going to be higher. I mean, just for what they were asking. And there was some education that had to go into the conversation about, these are the things that cost, and florals have gone up in price, rentals have gone up in price, labor has gone up in price. And so therefore, there's just unfortunately a higher price point on this particular thing. And so I feel like that's a big scary for a business owner like myself, is putting a price point out there, because how are the clients or couples going to react to that price point? Do they realize that that's an actual fair price point for the amount of, connections and my abilities fall into that? Or, are they comparing me to like somebody that just entered the wedding industry a year ago? Right.
Yeah. I mean, that becomes education through your website, through your social media, through your blogs. I think pricing is interesting too, because an invitation company or stationery company like Marcy, that's tough, right? People asking you pricing. Well, what do you want? You want gold leaf with this? Do you want that? Flowers are the same thing. That's tough. What's the price, right? And people don't know what stationery costs. People don't know what flowers cost, et cetera, et cetera.
Like I have a starting price.
You have to have some sort of starting price out there. And the statistic of that 77%, they're not even going to, if you don't have pricing, they're not even going to get you a lead. The goal is to get a lead, right? Yeah. And then the goal is to get a two-way conversation of that lead. And from that two-way conversation to get a sales consultation. And then while along you're doing that time, you're building trust and rapport and being helpful. Then you're selling your service. I'm priced this much because I do this, this, and this, and I've been around for 110 years. And I know.
That kind of leads me into my next thing is that, obviously the big point of contention right now is the average cost of a wedding that was produced by the Knot, because I think the Knot stated 33,000 is the average cost of a wedding, and we're all like, "What are you talking about? 33,000 really for 100 people in South Florida?" And then you explained beautifully before we went online or on air. Can you explain that whole scenario, the 33,000, and kind of help vendors explain this to their clients and do a deeper dive in those numbers?
Absolutely. So, any study that you do, any survey that you do, you have an average, and the average is $33,000, I should say. And in South Florida, that would be tough. But I know there's other markets out there that I hear the exact opposite of what you're saying, Keith and Marcy, where $33,000, that's too expensive. Nobody gets married here for $33,000. The average price here is like $18,000, right? So it's an average. So you can't get caught up on the average. Worry about what the pricing averages in your particular market. Now, how do we serve that up to our couples, right? So if you have not used Sign On as a couple and not used the Knot Budget Advisor, I strongly recommend you to go and do this. It's a newly released tool that estimates based on locations and priorities, along with the insights into the average cost of the markets of those particular categories.
Really?
The estimate based on real couple budgets who shared what they spent on the weddings and their vendors with us, right? So we're getting numbers not only from the data that we have from all our vendors, but also from the survey from our couples. So this morning, I went in, I live in Port St. Lucie, Florida. I signed in, I went to the Budget Advisor, and it's really cool. Like I said earlier with this AI tool, I just picked, I like this style wedding. I want to get married outside. I like these types of, it had like invitations and stationery, and I picked these photos. And then it asked me a bunch of other questions like, what type of vendors do you want? What kind of vendors? Well, I want a videographer, of course, a planner, of course, a stationer, of course, and then how many people, et cetera. Anyway, it spit out the number $45,000. That is right on for 100 people in Port St. Lucie, Florida. If you don't know where Port St. Lucie, Florida is, it's about 2 hours north of where Keith lives near Miami. The further north you go, the less expensive it is in Florida. So it's not, don't get hung up on that $33,000. Don't get hung up on the fact that that's the number that we're going to market with and telling every couple that it's only $33,000. Now, is it perfect? No, but it gives and it actually breaks down based on $45,000. This is, and also, you might think, again, flowers are more important. Maybe you need to increase your flower budget here, but it gives you a general breakdown. So please go look at that tool. It's really cool.
I have to tell you, that helps. It helps
really will help
dramatically, because I think we talked about this last time. I actually had a couple come to me and said, well, we're going to make our budget for our wedding is $33,000 because the Knot told us so. And I was like, wait, okay, randomly, I had him on my podcast, and let me go into more description or a deeper dive into this number, because it's not going to be this particular number for what you're looking for. What about vendor discovery? Because the thing is that as a planner, I use the Knot, I use a couple of other sites to kind of get my name in out there, but there are like venues that are yacht companies, and there are, venues that are not associated with a hotel. How do they get in front of couples? How do they get discovered by couples using the Knot?
I mean, it's so interesting, right? Like, I've been around a long time. When I first started at the Knot was it, right? Like, you would advertise, you'd do some bridal shows. You couldn't really afford to do TV and radio, right? You had to be in the phone book back then too, right? But now we're living in a world where they're on average, they're looking at they're looking for you in 4 different places before they even decide to give you an inquiry.
So they website, the Knot, another one, Instagram,
wherever their heads are, right? But you have to stand out in the crowd and be where the couples are going, where the couples are planning, be at least an option there. We get 2.4 million couples signing up with us every single year to help them turn their visions into reality. We get 7,000 new users per day. But how do you stand out, right? It's all based on your website. It's all based on your social media. It's all based on the Knot Wedding Wire, what descriptors you're using and filling out your storefront, right? It drives me nuts when wedding pros are paying us and they don't have their storefront filled out, and somehow it's my fault you're not getting the right leads, but you have 2 pictures and no content on your storefront. But in general, so you got to be the places where the couples are. So and stand out.
But, I actually, I was thinking about the comment that we were talking just a few minutes ago about the 33,000 and then 43,000 where you're located and such. A lot, because the study really has such a broad range of people who are planning weddings. Some of these weddings may be really big and over the top, and some of these weddings may be basically bare bones. So that is considered in the mix. Am I right?
Absolutely. I mean, the people that filled 17,000 couples that filled this out, some of them were backyard weddings.
Exactly. And they're making their own food and stuff, or they're bringing, maybe having a potluck. Some of these places, they were not really hiring a caterer and such. So those costs are going to be dramatically different. But that is considered in the mix. So Absolutely. when people are hearing 33,000, they kind of need to take that into consideration that, there's a strong variation.
I think couples hear that 33,000 on national news and other podcasts.
It's a great soundbite. I mean, it's a great soundbite.
On a national, we're talking about national numbers now, right? Like a national number, it's $33,000, right? Like, but then are they digging in further? No. And then when you say in Miami, Florida, you're not touching a wedding here for 100 people for less than, I'm making the number up, 60,000. Keith knows that. You guys know that more than I do. But in general, but it's about educating the clients. That's what it is. Right. 7 out of 10 couples take major action of planning their wedding before they even get a ring. Right.
Exactly.
So they're planning their wedding before they they're on our sites and they're creating their information and all this stuff. And they're just so excited. Right. Like, I think the cool tip there is if I was a wedding pro, I'm not smart enough to be a wedding pro because I don't have any wedding pro talents, but I would have a little box on my website, a tab on my website that says before the ring. And what is that? Like, because I know if they find me somewhere, even before the ring, boom, right? Like I'm going to be able to like FAQs, things you should look at, talk a little bit about yourself. On the flip side of that, we know that the majority of 63% of parents are paying for the majority of Gen Z's weddings. Right. So I would have a little tab on my website for parents and relatives, because my daughter comes to me and say, hey, check this planner out. I'm going to go on and check it out. And there's a little area just for me. Oh, that's cool. So these are the things that the study shows that how wedding pros should take advantage of, getting more leads, connecting more, and looking for additional revenue streams.
Speaking of leads and the timeliness, I mean, like I'm seeing a much different scope as to when people are starting to plan. Like they're planning a lot further out than like maybe a year ago. Can you elaborate a little bit more on that? I think it was like 15 months.
Or, what does the data show? Yeah.
The average engagement is 15 months.
15 months, because, for a while there, it was like, I felt like everything was 6 months, 8 months, 9 months. And then all of a sudden it shifted. And part of that generational shift, I guess, is that it all of a sudden expanded to 15 months or further. I mean, I have couples that are booking me for 2027.
27, yes.
And I'm like, I don't even know if I'm going to be alive in 2027. Much less. So, but you know what I mean? I mean, it felt like that, part of that generational shift went from short-term planning to long-term planning. And maybe it's a little kickback to that whole, that bouquet toss and the cake cutting and all of the traditional planning that
or locking in your preferred vendors and things like that. That could also be a factor.
Could be. It was interesting. I think you probably have seen this too last year too, where a couple would reach out, you're responding, you get a two-way conversation going, and then they ghost you. Then they're done. And then all of a sudden, 4 months or 5 months before the wedding, they said, okay, I'm ready to hire you. You reached out to me 3 months ago. Right. So in the year for the year bookings, I always call them, were way up last year. I don't know what that looks like this year so far. What I'm hearing from Keith, what I'm hearing from Marcy is it doesn't seem that way this year. But again, it's just part of generational shift. But back to leads, never give up. Like never give up on following up on those leads. Especially when you're getting this two-way conversation, or regard to getting two-way conversation, because they're busy, they're stressed.
How often should people follow up? I mean, we
talked about this. That's a whole other podcast. I live in the perfect world here in my little office, right? At minimum, I'm following up 7 times via email over the course of 30 days.
7 times.
7 times. I am calling and texting, if I have the phone number, at least 4 times in the course of 30 days.
And that doesn't feel annoying.
I don't care. I need the work. Right? And I've given them good information in that content, right?
Right.
And then I'm putting them on hold, and I'm following up another 5 times, right? After I'm putting them on hold for 10 days, then I'm following up another 5 times. And then at that point, you paid for that lead. No matter where the lead came from, I would never let them out of my marketing plan. As a planner, as a stationery, as a photographer, whatever, I'm gonna do a quarterly newsletter or something saying, hey, don't forget, I do bar mitzvahs, and I do this, and I do that, and I do birthday invitations, and I do that. So I never stop following up until they hit unsubscribe. I do want to say something here on the texting, though. I don't know what it is on our site. There's no rhyme or reason to it, but we seem to be getting a lot more couples giving us phone numbers than ever before. We don't make them. I don't, Keith. I think
I noticed that. Oh my God, so many phone numbers.
I'm like, yay! They're actually giving us phone numbers. The first thing I'm doing before I send an email, if I get the phone number from us or a phone number from your website, whatever, I'm calling and I'm leaving a message. Then I'm texting and saying, hey, I just left you a message. Love to talk. What's the best way to communicate with you? And then I'm about ready to send you an email. So I'm calling and texting before I'm saying it. I'm seeing people have really great results with that.
Really
That's great.
smart.
I like that.
So smart.
You need automations to do all that. Not the texting that they're expecting automation, but you need automations to follow up with saying as much as I'm asking you to follow up. Wow. But we're off subject now.
Well,
but we're about the whole lead thing. But it's sort of on subject, right, too, because we know this generation is emailing more like 5 to 8 people in the same category. And if you're not staying at the top of their inbox or the top of their messages on the phone, they're not ghosting you.
Right.
They just don't know you exist. You got lost.
I just find that, the whole thing just really surprised. It feels like there's more vendors than ever in the wedding industry. It used to be, like Marcy being in bespoke stationery, she used to be one of 5.
Right. And now
it feels like she's like one of 20 plus websites, printing companies, etc., that are all part of it. And so standing out it feels even harder now than ever before.
Yeah. Well, that's sort of could lead into the next thing. What I would like to share was what's important to these couples, right? What we found out from the study.
That I'd love to hear. Yes.
And guest experience. More couples are reshaping this wedding experience by infusing their celebration of celebrations with personalized cultural and ethnic elements across the board. They want this wedding to be memorable. 62% of couples in 2024 prioritize making their wedding uniquely theirs. 72% believe guest experience comes first. Wedding pros should be guest experience obsessed in your blogs, in your website, on your Not Wedding Wire storefronts, in your lead follow-ups. Couples are focused on guest experience more than ever, and that's going to set you different from all the other ones.
So follow up 7 times, text, email, phone call, include buzzwords, include colors, include, experience, fun, romantic.
These are all great takeaways.
It feels like a good plan of attack. Like you're saying, look, here are the things that we know will work, and our data is proving it.
Right. And I don't know if it was you who had mentioned it previously on a previous conversation, but I know that, I know the word vibe seems to be very hot right now. That's the buzzword that I hear a lot of. Was it you? I think it was.
Yes, it was. Part of those paragraphs that they write, paragraph after paragraph, that somebody has to go through and read everything and thank goodness that's not me. I just look at the data after it's analyzed. Vibe, the word vibe keeps coming up. Vibe. So where does that become important? on your website, for instance, do you have a button that says, click here to schedule a vibe and budget chat? In your lead follow-ups and Calendly, right? Click here to schedule a vibe and budget or style or whatever chat that goes to a Calendly link that for a 15-minute chat. You want to use that word vibe. I wouldn't overuse it. I don't know. I just have a problem because I'm old, I suppose. But the word vibe absolutely needs to be in your vernacular.
Awesome. And also when they're talking about, also when they're talking about like, their event, when you're asking about their aesthetic or such, it's more about I think it's more about the vibe or the feeling they want to evoke from their, from their guests.
100%.
Is that right?
100%. Yes.
So as we wrap this up, because we've already been going for a bit, what are some of the big takeaways for vendors, based on this study that you feel are super important that, vendors, like top 3 things that vendors should take away from this study that they can utilize today to help them get seen or booked by more couples?
If you haven't started adjusting your business to connect to Gen Z, you're behind. You need to start adjusting today. And I know Keith and Marcy and we've had one-on-ones and talked about that over the years.
Yep.
You need to start immediately. Research Gen Z. Wedding Pro has a ton of content, blogs and webinars, etc. And there's other places that would research with Gen Z. The other thing is be where the couples are when they start planning. And you can't just set something and forget it. The 22 million unique visits per month, 4,000 downloads a day, they're playing that. If you haven't downloaded the Knot app as a couple, download that app, see what they're using, so that you become an option in these places. It's not just the Knot and Wedding Wire, it's all the other things you have to do also, right? Because they're looking for you in at least 4 different places. And then really find additional revenue streams for your business, such as if we know that I know this is interesting. I know a photographer who offers after party packages after the wedding, after the wedding. Hey, let's get on a bus and go. Right. Yep. I know Marcy offers signage. I know a planner that offers signage. Look for, because like you said earlier, I think it was Keith, where there seems to be more wedding pros than ever. There's more competition than ever. Grab some of that revenue. Grab some of that revenue. Obviously, it's obviously really important to download this study, download the trend study, put photos, green, blue photos. Video becomes very important within your realm of marketing too, because this generation consumes more video than any other generation. Look at the trends and learn how to connect with today's couple. So.
It's so funny. I knew you were going to say that the additional revenue streams. I knew it. I just knew it because that's like your thing. You're like, look.
That's the thing. Because I'm so lucky at this job. I have the best job at the Knot, right? I truly do. I get to talk to thousands upon thousands of wedding pros, and I'm learning. Is much more than than teaching. I feel at times. But the people that are very successful here, they're running multi-ops across.
That's crazy.
They're running multi-markets. They're running multi-different categories. A photographer, it realizes that they need to maybe have a secondary price point, and they're hiring a different photographer. Same thing with planners. All of those things, right? We're not living in a world where things are going to get easier, unfortunately.
No, but the planner can come in earlier too. Like, planners can do the engagement, they can do the showers, etc., and so forth. So I think that's a great advice.
Yeah.
I love that.
Tom, thank you. Oh my God.
Thank you so much, Tom.
He just literally touched the tip of the iceberg. So if you're out there and you're watching this or listening to this, you do definitely want to download this study, because there is a lot of data and information in here that I think would be beneficial to anybody. Literally, couple or vendor, to be honest, because there's just so much data in there. And if you're not part of the Knot, be part of the Knot. And if you haven't liked and subscribed to our podcast, do that today, because we're going to be doing a lot more episodes coming up soon. But Tom, again, thank you again so much for being in. And oh my God, and I almost forgot. I'm such an idiot. I was like, oh my God,
there it is.
I forgot to put
I was just going to say we could put it in
QR code.
And we'll put a URL in the YouTube link in the information.
That's not it.
That's
it's
not
this
it.
one. This QR code up in top right.
I think that looked like one of my QR codes.
All right, scan this QR code. It'll take you right there to the study. And if you're listening to us, I'm going to make sure that it's in the advertisement so that way you can be able to click and link. All right.
And reach out to me. If you all have questions, shoot me an email. I don't care if you advertise or don't advertise with us. But reach out to me if you have questions or I can help you with anything. Or if I can't help you, I will find smart people like Keith and Marcy to help you better than I can.
Oh, so. You're amazing. So again, Tom Chelednik with The Knot. Thank you again for being part of the show. Hopefully we'll have you back on before next year when the next thing comes out. Yeah.
Lots of cool things coming. So I'll reach out.
Amazing. All right, guys. Thank you very much. And thank you again for listening and watching Behind the Veil. We will be back in the future weeks with new episodes. But until then, we're going to say goodbye.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.